In this video, this is still day 2, March 4th. I want to talk about Chevy Nova and the 307 engine. The reason I don't want to do 283 for testing, or at least for this video series to show you guys, is because 283 stopped existing in 1967 or 68, I believe. It was not available in the 1970s. That means we got no net ratings for it from GM. We could only kind of approximate or estimate our own. But I know for a fact that the 283 engine became a 307. It received a longer stroke, which made it into a 307. What else? Nova was produced from 68 to 74, which gives us a broad range of options. It gives us gross horsepower ratings right here. It gives us mixed horsepower ratings of gross and net in 1971, just like GM was doing for 1 year. And then we also have 3 years of net ratings to follow with that. Going back to automobile catalog, we could see 1968 308 Chevy 2 Nova was rated at 200 horsepower gross. In 1969, right here, our 308 has a rating of 200 horsepower gross. In 1970, the 308 got a rating of 200 horsepower gross as well. So it's received a stable rating all the way up to 1971, where we have a mixed rating. For now, let me input 200 horsepower, 200 horsepower, and 200 horsepower ratings for all 3 years of this engine in gross horsepower. All this horsepower is gross horsepower. Now here in 1971 we have a double rating in gross and net, and that rating will give us approximate percentage of how much power we lost due to all the accessories present on the engine. And here we are, 1971 307. It's rated at 200 horsepower gross and 139 horsepower net. So this is our first rating of 200 horsepower gross over 139 horsepower net rating. And here we are, we could see that we lost about 60 horsepower due to accessories like air conditioning, alternator, water pump, everything being put on. Now let's go over the net ratings for the next 3 years, and you could see that for 1972 307 our rating of net horsepower is 130. So between 1 year, 9 horsepower disappeared somewhere in the net horsepower rating. Let's go farther down. And in 1973, our 308 is rated at 115 horsepower. That is 1973. 115. Something happened. Then if we go to 1974, we see that the 308 engine is no longer available. So we'll put not available right here. What else can I add to this? Let me cut the video briefly. Alright, and here's what I want to add. I got 6 different tabs from the same 302 engine for different years Novas, and let's just go through them before we can select what kind of numbers we want to run. So in 1968 we got 200 horsepower and 300 feet of torque. In 1969 same Rochester 2-barrel carb, same rating, 200 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque. 1970 still gross ratings right here, same rating, 200 to 300. In 1971, this is where we get our double rating. We used to get 200 horsepower and 300 feet of torque, but now in net horsepower it's rated at 140 horsepower and 235 foot-pounds of torque. This is the most important year where we have both of the ratings, so we can kind of get our percentage difference of how much percentage of horsepower we lost and how much percentage of torque we lost between net and gross. Then in 1972, same car, but that's what you want to make sure, is rated at 130 and 230 foot-pounds of torque. The last year is the lowest rating of them all. I guess it might have received some kind of emission devices put onto them, or something happened that decreased the horsepower in net, or maybe they lied on the ratings in a year earlier. Anyway, this one is rated at 115 horsepower and 205 foot-pounds of torque. Basically, what I want to do next, before we go to the game and start running our numbers or select what kind of numbers we want to run to begin with, I want to go to 1971. This is where we received the mixed rating. I'm gonna go to full specifications and look at quarter mile times, acceleration times, 0 to 60 times, you know, all that crap based on both of these ratings for this year. Let me actually do it right now, just before, you know, might as well do it now. We click on full performance data for the 1971, and here we got top speed of 113, 0 to 60 9.4, quarter mile 17.3 at 80 miles an hour. Now, assuming this is the same engine from the previous year, because we have the same rating, 200 gross, 300 foot-pounds of torque for 1970. In 71, we have the same rating in gross, 200 and 300, so it is the same engine, right? But now let's take a look at 1970 full specifications and then full performance data, right? And now comes the moment of truth. It is basically the same engine in the same car, but now this advertised at 116 miles an hour, 0 to 60 times are at 8.5, quarter mile times at 16.7, at 3 miles faster. A year earlier, same engine, same car, same numbers. So something is not correct. You know what I mean? What's not correct is that the software for this website takes these numbers and calculates all these performance. This is software calculated, so these are not actual in life, real life tests. And that's what screws up the thing. You see, now go back to 1971. We got 140 horsepower and 235 foot-pounds of torque. Let's say that this engine, let's see, this one is rated less. Why? I really don't know, but let's take a look at the performance in 1972 when we rate everything in net. You see, we got lower top speed, we got way lower 0 to 60 time, 10 seconds. We got quarter mile in 77 and 78, so you can clearly see how 1969 has the best ratings and the best performance data. 1970 has the best ones. 1971 has a mixed rating, but it's the same as the previous year, yet it shows lower performance. And then the next year, when we get the lower ratings for these, it shows even less performance. So basically same engine, same car, showing us 3 different acceleration times, 3 different quarter mile times, you know, based on the number differences that supposedly this website calculates, which, you know, opens up the whole theory of how accurate is this website, how accurate are the net horsepower, gross horsepower, did GM lie, the whole theory. But I wanted to share this information first. I wanted to show you guys, you know, all these 3 or 4 or 5 different years and different horsepower ratings which the same engine and the same car received from GM. But for our next testing, and I think this is awesome, and thanks for GM for that, 1971, the year that we have both ratings, right? For the 1960s in gross and 1970s in net. And that is the engine, the 307, that I'm going to run for the future testing. This is the chassis, the drag coefficient, the weight, and everything. Drag times is going to be based off of 1971 model 307, not the 1967 Camaro 283 like I wanted before, just for testing for now. Why? Because we have both ratings, thanks God, from the same manufacturer, for the same year, for the same car. And this is what I'm going to count as the most correct information out of what we can get in between the range of years, just because that is what it is. I got no further explanation for the numbers that we're gonna run. We're gonna run the 307 V8, and I'll show you the rest of the numbers in the next video. And this is the gross horsepower ratings that we're gonna run, and this is the net horsepower ratings that we're gonna run. So right here I'm gonna finish my day 2 videos, and on day 3 we're really gonna get into the game and see what kind of results we can achieve.